So I just wanted to express on behalf of the government of Canada our deep concern about the escalation of violence in Nagorno-Karabakh. You have seen Canada with the United Kingdom took a stance back on, I think, on the 27th of September to call for cessation of violence, to protect civilians, to de-escalate the conflict that we're seeing. Now, in the last few days, we've seen an escalation of violence, and it's of great concern to us. We have seen also external actors, somehow allegations of being involved in this conflict, whether it's Syrian mercenaries or other. So we call on external parties to stay out of that conflict. And as the Prime Minister has announced, I will be traveling in the near future to consult with our partners in Europe. We have been very engaged since the 27th. I've been in contact with the Foreign Minister of Armenia on almost every other day to take stock of where we are and understand how the situation is evolving. Today, in light of the allegations that were raised, I think was last week, that equipment from Canadian companies that would have been exported would end up in the conflict that we're facing now in Nagorno-Karabakh. I launched immediately an investigation to get to the bottom of things and to look at the evidence that is presented. And today, I've said that at the time, that would be prepared to suspend or cancel any permits that would be found in violation of the very robust export permit regime we have in Canada. Canada is one of the countries in the world which is part of the Arms Trade Treaty, and I am committed to uphold the highest standards when it comes to assessing whether Canadian companies export technology or equipment meets the spirit and the letter of the law. And today I've decided to suspend the permits, the relevant permits, which were the subject of the allegations, pending the completion of our investigation. So with that, I'll be happy to take questions, unless you want me to repeat that in French, but I'll let you decide how you want to go. Oui. Alors, on est très préoccupé. Le gouvernement du Canada est très préoccupé par l'escalade de la violence qu'on voit au Nagorno-Karabakh. Durant les derniers jours, on a vu même des allégations de puissances étrangères. On a même vu des allégations de mercenaires qui viendraient de la Syrie s'impliquer dans ce conflit-là. On est évidemment très préoccupé de la situation. Vous savez, le Canada avait émis une des premières déclarations avec le Royaume-Uni le 27 septembre dernier, où on demandait une cessation de la violence, on demandait un retour à la table des négociations et on demandait la protection des civils dans ce conflit-là qui fait rage présentement. En même temps, j'ai été en contact avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Arménie de façon régulière pour bien comprendre la situation sur le terrain. Comme le premier ministre l'a dit aujourd'hui, je me rendrai en Europe prochainement pour parler avec mes homologues, pour assurer une réponse de la communauté internationale adéquate face au conflit, face à l'escalade du conflit et aux allégations qu'il y a des puissances étrangères qui s'impliqueraient dans ce conflit-là. Et j'avais dit aussi, suite aux allégations qui avaient été soulevées, que de l'équipement de compagnies canadiennes aurait pu être exporté et se retrouver sur la scène de ce conflit-là, que je n'hésiterais pas soit d'annuler les permis d'exportation, soit de les suspendre. Et aujourd'hui, on a annoncé, j'ai annoncé, alors que l'enquête fait cours, j'ai annoncé une enquête dès que les allégations ont été soulevées. J'ai lancé une enquête, j'ai demandé aux fonctionnaires d'enquêter sur les allégations. Et aujourd'hui, j'ai décidé de suspendre les 10 permis d'exportation sur l'équipement qui aurait été envoyé et qu'on retrouverait dans ce conflit-là. Alors, j'ai décidé aujourd'hui de suspendre les permis alors que l'enquête va continuer son cours. Et ça, pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes, c'est pour leur rappeler que le système d'export, de permis d'exportation de biens canadiens à l'étranger est un des systèmes les plus robustes au monde. Le Canada fait partie du traité sur le commerce des armes. Alors moi, je prends l'engagement face aux Canadiens et aux Canadiennes de non seulement respecter la loi et l'esprit de la loi, mais aussi les plus hauts standards. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, c'est un bel exemple des plus hauts standards que le Canada entend respecter travailler avec nos partenaires internationaux pour faire une déescalade de ce conflit-là et s'assurer qu'il n'y a pas de parties externes au conflit qui s'impliquent dans ce conflit-là. On veut le retour de la paix, le retour de la négociation et la protection des civils le plus rapidement possible. Là-dessus, ça va me faire plaisir de prendre des questions.
Nous allons maintenant passer aux questions, commençant par des questions au téléphone. Un rappel, une question suivie. Le temps est court, donc we'll now go to questions, starting with a question on the phone. Quick reminder, one question, one follow-up. We have a brief period of time of about 10 minutes. Operator, do we have a first question?
The first question is from David Lundgren de Reuters Canada. La première question est de David Lundgren de Reuters Canada. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Thank you. Minister, a couple of questions. What does Canada bring to the conversation in Nagorno-Karabakh? I mean, it's not really in Canada's traditional area of operations, and you have no peacekeepers anywhere nearby. What are you hoping to contribute to the conversation?
Well, I would say Canada brings credibility when it comes to speaking for the protection of civilians, the protection of human rights, and making sure that we work with the presidency of the OSCE. I've been in touch with my colleagues from Albania, which currently holds the presidency, to see how Canada can play a role. You've seen Canada involved when it comes to Belarus. You've seen Canada involved when it comes to tension in the Eastern Mediterranean. And you've seen Canada involved when it comes to Nagorno-Karabakh. And I think it's an example where Canada can play a meaningful role in the international arena. Everyone, I would say, respect the position of Canada. That's why you've seen, David, that not only we spoke for Canada, but Canada has been the one who has gathered also the international community. Our first statement was with the United Kingdom. I have been in touch very closely with the European Union. Again, with the United Kingdom about a second declaration in view of what we're seeing. So I think what you're seeing is Canada being this honest broker, the convener, where we can make sure that we bring the voice of the international community together based on values and shared values and principles. And that's why I have taken upon me and representing Canada to play a meaningful role to de-escalate the violence, to call the parties to come back to the negotiating table, to call it for what it is. Also, when we see allegation of external parties getting involved, and to make sure that we keep an open channel of communication and hopefully bring back the party under the Minsk process as soon as possible to reduce and to prevent civilian casualties.
And secondly, how much responsibility do you think Turkey bears for what's going on?
Well, we are concerned by allegations of external influence. I mentioned we've seen allegations of Syrian mercenaries. We've seen different countries getting involved directly or indirectly in this conflict, and that is of concern. That's why when the Prime Minister announced that I'll be going soon to engage with my European counterparts is to develop a common response. I think that the community, the Armenian community in particular in Canada, has been very vocal in making sure that Canada pays all the attention necessary to this conflict. We have been engaging through a number of partners in Europe as well, and we will continue. I think that's the role that Canada can play. You've seen us. I think I certainly want to make sure that the voice of the community is heard, that we play a meaningful role in bringing back the party. And you saw I had a fairly long conversation with my Greek counterpart the other day, almost an hour, talking about the situation in the region. And we certainly want to play a meaningful role to the OSCE, to the presidency, with the EU, with the UK. And I think that's where you see there's a lot of backroom diplomacy to try to put an end to this conflict as soon as possible.
Well, now I'll take a question from the room.
Thank you.
Merci.
Ian?
Ian Wood, CTV News. Mr. Champagne, I want to turn to the case of the 5-year-old girl, Amira, in Syria. Consular Affairs announced that she is en route back to Canada. Can you walk us through exactly how we were able to get her out of the Al-Hol detention camp? Who helped us in the region? Where is she now? The process of all that, and also just respond to why did it take Canada so long to get her out of there when many other countries were able to get their citizens out much faster?
Well, first of all, we're pleased that the sole Canadian orphan is now on her way back to Canada. I just saw when I was at QP that the plane which is bringing her back to Canada has landed in the first point here in Canada. I think they're refueling as we speak, and will be on the child will be on its way to final destination in Canada. And obviously, I want to respect the privacy that the family has demanded. But when it comes to Canada, you know, there was a unique set of circumstances and facts which call for a humanitarian response. And we know that Canadians would expect their government to show empathy in cases like that. And that's what we've done. So we've worked with a number of agencies across government. You signed my statement that I did thank the Armed Forces of Canada, which have been working superbly with our diplomats to make sure that in a very complex situation, we were able to repatriate the child safely. I would say that with all these operations, it is very complex. We have a duty of care to our employees. The situation with respect to other Canadians who are currently in northeastern Syria is not changing. We don't have a diplomatic presence in Syria. The situation is very complex, changing rapidly. What we're doing, though, is to inquire about their well-being on a regular basis, and we'll continue to do that. But I think today Canadians can rejoice that the sole Canadian orphan has now touched ground in Canada onward to final destination. And I think that's what Canadians expected from their government. That's what we did.
Right. And I just wanted to clarify. Did we work with the Kurds to get her out? And again, when other countries like France and Australia managed to get people out 6, 8, 12 months ago, it's taken us quite a while to get one child out of northeastern Syria. What could we have done to have expedited this? And as my follow-up, though, second question, I just want to ask, Canada has, you have said that we will look at stopping arms exports to Turkey because of possible human rights violations there. They're a NATO ally. Are we going to be taking these steps with Saudi Arabia with our export of lavs there?
So let me come back to your first point, which was the contact. Obviously, I think you can expect the Kurdish authorities to issue a statement later on today with respect to the assistance they have been providing to this child. And certainly we are, when you were referring to the amount of time, I think I want to thank the family which has been with us all along, which has trusted us to mount a successful mission and operation to ensure the health and safety and security of everyone, including the child. And I'm grateful that we could do that in a safe manner. And I think Canadians would understand that when you're entering in a conflict zone, people would understand that it was right to take all the steps to ascertain the identity, certain citizenship, and then mounting an operation which requires the involvement, like I said, of the Canadian Armed Forces. With respect to the permits, just to be clear, what I've suspended is the permits that were alleged in the recent allegations that some cameras, some equipments would have been used by the forces on the ground in the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh. And I did that because under the law, I'm allowed to suspend permit pending investigations where we will gather further evidence to make sure that all exports comply with the spirit and the letter of the law. Like I said, we have one of the most robust regime when it comes to export. And that's what Canadians, I think, expect from us. I don't think you can compare the situation with other exports that you mentioned. I think we're looking at every export, whether it's in the case of a Canadian company exporting equipment in Turkey or Canadian company exporting equipment in Saudi Arabia. The set of rules that we have under the law and the regulation require the Minister of Foreign Affairs to look at a piece of equipment with respect to a destination, with respect to the use of the equipment, and a end user statement. So we're doing a very thorough due diligence. I take that responsibility very seriously, and certainly we'll continue to assess. And I said I will not hesitate to suspend or cancel any permits where we have credible evidence that they would be used against the Arms Trade Treaty, and because human rights are now enshrined in Canadian legislation when it comes to assessing export permits. So I take that responsibility very seriously, as Canadians would expect from their foreign minister.
We'll now go back to questions on the phone. Please, reminder, one question, one follow-up. We're short on time. Operator, do we have a first question?
Yes, we do. The next question is from Émilie Bergeron from Agence QMI. La prochaine question est de Émilie Bergeron d'Agence QMI. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Oui, bonjour. J'avais une question. Vous dites qu'on ne peut pas comparer ce cas de figure-là au permis d'exportation pour l'Arabie saoudite. Pouvez-vous expliquer un peu plus pourquoi, selon vous, ce n'est pas comparable?
Bien, parce que dans le cas des équipements, puis on parle vraiment de quelques équipements qui auraient pu se retrouver, évidemment, dans le conflit présentement au Nagorno-Karabakh, et les garanties qui avaient été données par la compagnie canadienne qui voulait exporter ces produits-là. Alors, nous, quand on fait une enquête, on va voir, puis on s'assure qu'évidemment, tout ce qui avait été dit par la compagnie qui veut exporter, que ces engagements-là soient respectés. Dans le cas de l'Arabie saoudite, comme j'ai dit, les Canadiens et les Canadiennes doivent savoir que le régime d'export, le régime d'exportation, des permis d'exportation au Canada est un des plus rigoureux dans le monde, dans lequel, en vertu de l'accord sur le commerce des armes, on a mis dans la loi canadienne des considérations de droits humains. Et là, c'est pour ça que pour chaque permis qui est demandé, bien, il y a une analyse de cas par cas qui est faite. Quel équipement on veut exporter, vers qui on veut l'exporter, qui est le client final, quelle est l'utilisation. Et c'est dans ce cadre-là de la loi qu'évidemment, on prend la décision d'émettre ou non des permis, en se réservant toujours le droit de les suspendre, de les annuler le moment venu, si les déclarations qui avaient été faites à l'époque qui justifiaient l'émission de ces permis-là seraient erronées dans le temps. Alors, c'est exactement ce que j'ai fait aujourd'hui de façon prudente. J'ai décidé de suspendre les 10 permis d'exportation qui étaient destinés pour les caméras pendant qu'on finalise notre enquête pour s'assurer que ce qui avait été commis ou ce qui avait été dans lequel la compagnie s'est engagée en termes d'utilisation finale, que ça corresponde bien à cet usage-là. Et si, cas échéant, ce ne l'est pas, bien, on verra les prochaines étapes à prendre. Mais l'étape prudente, je pense, aujourd'hui, c'était de suspendre les permis.
Vous parlez de plusieurs licences qui ont été suspendues pour ces caméras. On parle de combien de licences et combien de temps la suspension pourrait durer? Je sais que dans le cas de l'Arabie saoudite, l'enquête avait duré un certain temps, 1 an et demi, si je me rappelle bien. À quoi on peut s'attendre cette fois-ci?
Bien, le nombre de licences ne correspond pas nécessairement au nombre de caméras. Il faut ramener ça aussi pour les gens qui nous écoutent. On parle de quelques caméras. C'est un relativement petit nombre de caméras dont on parle où les permis d'exportation avaient été demandés parce que vous savez, quand vous émettez des permis, il y a des permis, par exemple, pour les données techniques qui vont, par exemple, pour les pièces, pour l'entraînement, pour le support face à l'équipement. Donc, le nombre de permis, c'est quelques dizaines, mais le nombre d'équipements dont on parle vraiment d'un très petit nombre de caméras qui auraient pu se trouver là. Mais, par contre, ça demande qu'on fasse l'enquête. C'est pour ça qu'on l'a commandé. Combien de temps cette enquête-là va durer? Écoutez, on travaille avec les services de renseignement à travers le Canada, évidemment, avec nos alliés aussi, nos partenaires, pour obtenir les preuves dont on a besoin pour s'assurer que ce qui a été allégué est effectivement le cas. Mais je pense que la décision prudente aujourd'hui, dans l'intérêt public, c'était de suspendre les permis en question.
We'll now take a question in the room. Louis?
Sure. Lieber Thume, Canadian Press. Minister, wanted to, the Syrian Democratic Council or Committee is saying that they're going to free all Syrian nationals from detention camp and that they're not going to take responsibility for foreigners anymore. Do we know what that means for those Canadians that have been detained over there? And is the government looking at any assistance for them or anything to do with them?
Well, like I said, when it comes to the case of the child we're talking today, that was the sole Canadian orphan, as you know, in northeastern Syria. Our position with respect to other Canadians which are detained currently in northeastern Syria is not changed. We will obviously inquire about their well-being from time to time, as we do, because, as you know, we don't have a diplomatic presence in Syria. we have a duty of care to our own civil service employee and diplomats. We cannot enter the territory in Syria. So obviously, this is a new statement from the Kurdish Authority. We'll look into that. But certainly, our first and foremost concern is to ensure the safety and security of Canadians here at home. And we will be, like I said, our policy has not changed. This was a case, the facts and circumstances in this case warranted a humanitarian response. This is what we've done. We mounted an operation with the Canadian forces. I would say the circumstances were exceptional. We work with our partners to do that. But when it comes to our broader policy of Canadians detained in Syria, that policy has not changed.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask why not, but why is that policy not changed? Why is that not? But I wanted to also ask about the Canadian military's involvement. If you can expand on that, like what was the involvement of the Canadian military in this case?
Well, I want to thank the men and women who participate in that. You would appreciate that to preserve operational safety. I cannot go into much detail apart from thanking the men and women in uniforms, which serve us day in, day out. And they're amongst the best in what they do, and they've proven it again today. So we're very thankful. Our diplomat, our armed forces were there. But when it comes to the broader policy, that policy has not changed. What dictated the government of Canada's response in this case was the really, truly exceptional nature of that case. You're talking about a sole orphan, which had obviously no parent, no custodian with her, was in a camp, so required the government of Canada to take a humanitarian approach to that. That's why we work with our partners and we're able to fly her back home safely so she can start a new journey in Canada, and we're proud of that.
We'll take one more question on the phone before coming back to the room for the last question. Operator, do we have a last question on the phone?
Yes, we do. The next question is from Hélène Buzetti from Le Devoir. La prochaine question est de Hélène Buzetti de Le Devoir. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, M. Champagne.
Bonjour,
très simplement, pourquoi est-ce qu'on ne rapatrie pas les autres Canadiens? S'il y a une chose que prouve ce rapatriement de la petite, c'est que c'est possible. Pourquoi le faites-vous pas?
Bien, je vous dirais que les circonstances dans lesquelles, comme je le disais, qu'on a pu rapatrier cet enfant-là, le seul enfant qui était orphelin dans la partie nord-est de la Syrie, écoutez, c'est un cas exceptionnel. Les circonstances, les faits qui entouraient cette situation-là étaient uniques. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a fait preuve d'humanité, comme les gens s'attendraient du gouvernement du Canada. On a pu monter une opération humanitaire pour s'assurer. Maintenant, ce qu'il faut rappeler aux gens, c'est que la situation, évidemment, en Syrie, elle est complexe, elle est dangereuse. On a fermé notre mission en Syrie en 2012 et on a aussi un devoir face aux diplomates qui devraient, le cas échéant, se rendre là-bas. Donc, nous, ce qu'on a dit, c'est que notre politique n'a pas changé. On va continuer, par contre, de s'assurer du bien-être des Canadiens et des Canadiennes qui seraient détenus dans cette partie-là, mais la politique générale n'a pas changé. C'était un cas d'exception. Je pense que les gens qui nous écoutent comprennent quand vous avez un enfant orphelin là-bas, on se devait de faire l'exceptionnel. C'est ce qu'on a réussi à faire avec les forces armées canadiennes. Mais vous comprendrez que c'est une opération très complexe qui a dû être montée pour pouvoir la rapatrier. Et les circonstances uniques qu'on retrouve dans ce cas-là ne se trouvent pas dans les autres cas. Par contre, on va continuer de faire preuve, comme on fait, de pouvoir essayer de continuer de parler avec les autorités kurdes pour s'assurer du bien-être de ces gens-là. Mais comme vous savez, le Canada n'a pas de présence diplomatique, n'a pas d'accès au territoire syrien. Donc, comme le premier ministre a indiqué, il n'y a pas de plan pour rapatrier d'autres Canadiens et Canadiennes qui seraient là-bas.
Mais justement, vous ne répondez pas au pourquoi. Je comprends qu'on n'a pas de représentation diplomatique, etc., mais on l'a fait pour cette jeune fille. La communauté internationale nous demande de les rapatrier, ne serait-ce que pour leur faire un procès et pour qu'enfin ils soient condamnés pour leurs exactions potentielles. Pourquoi ne voulez-vous pas d'eux ici? Bien,
je vous dirais qu'il y a une grande différence entre aller de monter une opération pour aller chercher une enfant orpheline dans un camp de réfugiés là-bas avec tout ce que ça comporte en termes de santé et sécurité pour ceux qui font l'opération et assurer la santé et sécurité, évidemment, de l'enfant. Ce genre d'opération-là était unique dans sa composition, dans les circonstances qui entouraient ça, et vous ne pouvez pas retrouver les mêmes circonstances. Et je vous dirais que si vous regardez la communauté internationale, le focus a été beaucoup sur les orphelins, les orphelines qui se trouvaient dans les camps de réfugiés, parce que ça pose une circonstance particulière, c'est-à-dire que vous avez un enfant là-bas qui n'a pas de gardien ou gardienne, il n'y a pas de parent, il n'y a pas de mère ou de père. Alors, ça demande évidemment une réponse humanitaire. C'est ce que le Canada a fait, c'est ce que les autres pays ont fait dans le monde, mais la politique générale, les circonstances qui se trouvaient dans ce cas-là ne se trouvent pas ailleurs pour monter le même genre d'opération.
And last question in the room. David?
Yeah, David Thurton, CBC News.
Sure.
I think I heard you and QP say that travel restrictions are coming on for people from Hong Kong. Can you talk about the extent of that and when that's going to happen?
I'm happy that you're listening to QP. That's a good question. I'm happy with that. I always try to talk to Canadians at QP. So what we said is when it came to Hong Kong, if you recall at the time, Canada was the very first country in the world to suspend the extradition treaty between Hong Kong and Canada. Then others have followed suit. That was the question about leadership. Well, I said, well, obviously Canada is leading because we were the first, and then the others have followed suit. They thought it was a good idea. Then the second thing was obviously to suspend the export of sensitive equipment, which we did. And the third leg of that was some immigration measures. You may recall that we had announced at the time some facilitation with respect to the people of Hong Kong who may want to come to Canada. And we said at the time that the government of Canada is looking at additional measures. So that's what I was referring to. And obviously, we have 300,000 Canadians currently, or that's what we estimate. Those are Canadians, so they have a full right, a constitutional right to come back to Canada if they so wish. But this is more in terms of immigration measures that would facilitate if others wanted to come. And that is part of the plan that we laid out initially. And I said that we would, Minister Mendicino is working very hard in coming with a plan that would be responsive. And we are also coordinating with our partners and allies. You've seen different countries proposing different things on immigration. So we want to make sure, the best way to have impact is to work with partners and allies. And I think you've seen a trend now, Canada, when it came to Hong Kong, Canada leading with the UK, Australia, the United States, our New Zealand friends. So when we're looking at issues like that, or the European Union, the thing is to work together. That's what we're doing now, talking to different countries to make sure that what we present to the Canadian public and obviously to the people of Hong Kong would be well received and would address particular concerns that the people may have currently.
And so Goodale is going to be your new High Commissioner to the UK.
I have seen some press reports about that, and obviously we'll have more to say down in the future. Appointments of ambassadors is a long process, and obviously we're proud of Minister Goodale. He served very well, obviously, while he was in government, but also now as the special advisor when it comes to PS 752, and we had the family today. So Minister Goodale has proven to be an outstanding servant of Canada. We're happy in the role that he is in today, and I wish him all the luck for the future endeavors that he may choose to take.
He's going to be your High Commissioner.
Like I said, I'm happy for him to serve today. Minister Goodale is serving the families of PS 752, and I really appreciate his work on that. Merci.
Merci
tout le monde.
Merci.
Merci, bonne journée.